And as the investigation into Trump's imagined enemy sputters, the investigation into Trump and his allies appears to actually be gaining steam. Former Trump advisor Peter Navarro has revealed that he was served with a federal grand jury subpoena last week related to the January 6th attack on the Capitol. Now, Peter Navarro has already received one subpoena related to the insurrection, a subpoena from the January 6th investigation in Congress. And Navarro was found in contempt of Congress for defying that subpoena. He faces a potential criminal contempt charge from the Justice Department. And last week, according to Navarro, two FBI special agents banged loudly on his door in the early morning hours and presented him a new subpoena from federal prosecutors demanding any documents relating to that earlier subpoena, including, and this is important, any communications with former President Trump or Trump's lawyers. And while we know a lot about the January 6th investigation in Congress, we know a lot less about the Justice Department probe that is also underway. And if federal prosecutors are getting a subpoena for a top White House advisor for his communications about January the 6th, well, that could suggest that the criminal investigation is both broader and further along than what we actually knew. Joining us now is Dan Goldman, former assistant U.S. attorney and the Democratic lead counsel in Donald Trump's first impeachment. Dan, it's great to see you again. Thank you for making time for us this evening. Help us unpack this a little bit here. Peter Navarro is facing a possible federal criminal contempt charge for defying a subpoena from the January 6th investigation in Congress. Could this new grand jury subpoena just be about his contempt referral, or is there a reason to think that he is being subpoenaed as part of the broader Justice Department investigation of January the 6th?
I got to tell you, Eamon, I don't know the answer. And ordinarily, you would not have a target of an investigation subpoenaed with a grand jury subpoena. And there's no question he's the target of the criminal contempt because he was referred by Congress to the Department of Justice for potential prosecution for contempt of Congress. But on the other hand, that is a very unusual charge, and the Department of Justice may want to get to the bottom of whether or not Donald Trump did instruct him not to testify based on executive privilege, which is Donald Trump's privilege, not Peter Navarro's privilege. Of course, it's a bogus claim of privilege, but Peter Navarro is not necessarily in a place or in a position where he can determine whether it's bogus or not. So that is possible. It's also possible that as we know, they are expanding the investigation beyond January 6th. Peter Navarro essentially admitted on MSNBC that he was an architect of the scheme to overturn the election. So he has not been shy about what his role was and how he went about doing this. And that would obviously trigger some interest from the Department of Justice as they expand their investigation. It could be either or both.
And given the fact that he did, as you mentioned, boast about the role he played, what does it tell you about the federal criminal investigation that they're apparently asking for Peter Navarro's communications with Trump or Trump's lawyers? As you mentioned, that's a privilege that the former president would have, not Peter Navarro.
Right. I mean, the issue that Peter Navarro would probably argue is, how can you charge me with a crime when I am not a court who can determine whether or not Donald Trump's claim of executive privilege is legitimate or not? Whether we can sit here and opine, but our opinion also doesn't matter. A court would have to determine that, or there would have to be some agreement between Trump and the committee. But Navarro is not the one to make that determination. That would be his argument. The problem is that there's a lot of persuasive authority that would say it's irrelevant whether or not Donald Trump says that executive privilege applies. You still have to show up. You can claim executive privilege, but you don't have immunity from showing up. So that would be the argument that the Department of Justice would have. But I do think, Eamon, regardless of what's going on with Peter Navarro, what we are seeing is the acceleration and expansion of the Department of Justice's investigation into the coup, into the effort to overturn the election. I think the request to the January 6th committee is an indication of that. Some of these subpoenas that we've heard about it related to the fake electors, they are ramping up their investigation.
Yeah, it certainly seems like that, even to outside observers like myself.